The Champions League makes its big return next week. Alrighty, man, it's back in less than 7 days. So, we gotta go through each and every team quick say some words about them, look at their fixtures, and come up with a reasonable expectation as to which section of the table they will finish. Top 8, playoff places, or eliminated. I'm excited, I can't wait to deliver UCL this week, the series, to you guys after each match day this season. And guys, some news, this season we'll be working alongside DAZN, which is sick because that's the platform that I use in order to watch the Champions League in Canada, among many other leagues. And they now carry the Champions League in Spanish in the USA as well, alongside Serie A. So if you want to watch on DAZN, use my link, dazn.com/Rabona TV. So guys, first off, looking at the standings from last season, we can get a loose idea of what it will take to make each section of the table, right? As you can see, it took 16 points to make it into the top 8, but it's not like there was a huge spread from 6th place all the way to 19th. Just 3 points difference from those 13 places, which is wild. But in general, you needed to have a minimum of 5 wins to even have a shot at the top 8, with 6 wins out of 8 matches, basically guaranteeing a top 8 finish, which, remember, that gets you a bye into the round of 16 and you'll be a seeded team. Now the places from 16 to 9 all go to the knockout playoffs as well, but they are seeded teams. But the point spread between those who made it into the playoffs and those who were eliminated was tiny, from 15 to 11 points. We had teams with as little as 3 wins making it through, so that tells you that anything can happen with this format. Stade Brestois making it through, I mean, they got pumped by PSG, unfortunately, in the playoff, but still, they made it. But PSG, that brings up a great point, because at one point they were out of this competition, for much of it actually. They had to hustle in their final few matches of the league phase to make it through, and they ended up winning the whole thing. So again, anything can happen, even with the Pot 1 teams, the big boys, because they also have to play Pot 1 teams. The big difference from the previous format, where they never had to. Pot 1 teams versus Pot 1 teams adds to the flavor of this format, adds to the anxiety. Okay, let's hit the teams, trying to keep it to a minute or less for each. Honestly, the most fun will be some of the debutants that you may not know as well, let's be real, but we'll hit all 36 regardless. Strap in. PSV qualified as the champions of the Netherlands, and last season they beat Juventus in the playoff round 4-3 on aggregate. Perisic going crazy, but were absolutely smoked by Arsenal 9-3 in the round of 16. Bad one. Luuk de Jong, he is gone. They can't rely on him anymore. He left for Porto this summer. That kind of came out of nowhere. Bakayoko left as well for RB Leipzig. Noah Lang for Napoli, and Malik Tillman to Leverkusen. So quite a few big departures from PSV and some really young fellas signed, besides Playa, he's 32. When you have a younger team like this, for the most part, it's a double-edged sword in that your results can be inconsistent, such as PSV losing to Telstar at home recently. But you get exciting football usually. Factor in that PSV have one of the most difficult fixture lists in the entire competition, as you can see here, and I fear for them a bit. I think PSV will not be making it into the knockout rounds this season. Bayern Munich is a bit of a weird team this season. On the one hand, they look irresistible in the attack when their starting lineup is out there. Olise, whew. On the other hand, they look a bit thin, and should injuries hit, that attack will look very different. You know, Nico Jackson joining is actually of great interest to me. Let's see how he does in Germany, and if he can gain some confidence there, how that will affect his inconsistent finishing. Will he find some consistency? I still don't fully trust Bayern defensively, to be honest with you, and with Eric Dyer leaving, someone who, you know, may not be your preferred starter, but company relied upon at times throughout the season to cover injuries. We'll see what happens. Ta joined, of course, which is big, as is the signing of Luis Diaz, but I feel as though still the squad is a bit thin, and they'll feel that in the winter and the spring. All that said, still believe that Bayern is a top club in this competition, and despite having some tricky away matches to Arsenal and PSG, I think they'll still get the 5 wins and potentially a draw or whatever else that they need to make the top 8. Chelsea's squad is not thin, as they have once again been very active in the market, making some great sales to raise 330 million euros this summer, as well as spending 328, so a net gain, right? I like a lot of the signings that the Conference League and Club World Cup champions have made, but the one that excites me the most is the one they made a while ago in Estevan, although João Pedro's good too. But anyway, Estevan guy is adapting quickly to the Premier League, to which he said it's due to the warm weather in England since he has arrived. You wait till those winter fixtures up north, man. But anyway, Chelsea have shown how good they can be in tournament play with the 2 cups they have won already in 2025 under Maresca. And yeah, they are streaky in the Premier League, but I expect them to be strong in the Champions League. They'll be relatively happy with their draw. Unlucky to get Napoli as one of their pot 3 teams. That's a tough pot 3 team to get. But again, you can expect them to get 5-ish wins in the competition. I think top 8, maybe close with the teams who will finish 9th through 16th, but still top 8 for me. Galatasaray, if you want to speak about teams who have been active this summer, Galatasaray have been spending big on guys like Victor Osimhen, Leroy Sané, at least his wages. Tingo. They brought in Gundogan as well to add to their already strong squad that have won the Super League 3 seasons in a row. They didn't make it into the Champions League last season, though they were in the group stage in the 23-24 season. Now, will they make it out of the league phase? Their pot 3 and 4 fixtures aren't easy per se, but they are matches that Galatasaray will hope to win. And that's where they will have to be at their best. Also, they have a shot against Frankfurt as well. Playing at Leti at home, I mean, who knows what will happen, right? So for me, honestly, I think Galatasaray will do enough to get around 12 points and advance to the knockout playoff. Also, while Liverpool is tough, Man City is one of those matches where they could get slapped, or you could see Galatasaray stealing something somehow. The champions of Belgium, and one of the more interesting rises in modern football, Union Saint-Gilloise, or Union SG. Their owner is the same as Brighton's, Tony Bloom, who has used his data and analytics resources to identify players that they think are undervalued, but can help to build a very strong team. Their club record signing, Anan Kalaili, whom they spent 6.5 million euros on. That's it. When Bloom completed his takeover of Union SG in 2018, they were in the 2nd division. They were promoted in 2021 and won the league last season, the first time since 1935, 90 years ago. I will absolutely be watching my boy Promise David, the Canadian killer out there. A couple of Canadian strikers in the Champions League, both named David. Anyway, Inter at home, Bayern away, Atleti away, Galatasaray away. Some difficult fixtures for them for sure. And they won't be playing at their home stadium, instead playing at Anderlecht's Lotto Park. I think that they have potential to just sneak into the top 24 to advance as an unseeded playoff team. Slavia Praha, they actually beat Union SG in the qualifying rounds of last year's Champions League before falling to Lille by 3-2. This season, they were straight into the competition, my friend. So last season they played in the Europa League and they struggled with just 1 win and 2 draws. The rest were losses. And unfortunately for this season, they were handed a very difficult draw. Barcelona, Inter, Arsenal, Atalanta Atalanta is one that could provide a surprise, maybe. Bodo Glimt, Tottenham, Athletic Club, and then Pafos. I can't see them getting up to 11-ish points to advance to the playoff. I think elimination after the league phase is what's most likely on the cards for Slavia Praha. I think that's where they will land. Liverpool, the team that topped the league phase last season and nearly had a perfect record before they rotated the team against PSV on the final match day and fell 3-2. They have really spent big this summer, more than any other club in the world, by 150 million euros actually. Absolutely insane. So it's clear that they have intentions of winning it all this season after getting the Arne Slot era kicked off with the Premier League title. That final edition of Isaac, if that man stays fit, and that attack will be scary. It was already great with Ekitike, who may be forced to the wing, or maybe Slot will try to play with 2 strikers, as Ekitike has experience playing as a front 2 alongside Marmoush at Frankfurt, by the way. So anyway, Liverpool is a side that will no doubt be in the top 8 despite having some tricky fixtures. They get to run it again against Real Madrid, Xabi Alonso's homecoming. They also welcome Atleti to Anfield. And the rest of the fixtures, Qarabag, Galatasaray, Marseille, PSV, Frankfurt, they're the favorites for all of those matches, right? I think that's fair to say. Winning the matches is another thing, of course, but with the quality they have all over the pitch, anything outside of the top 8 would be surprising to me. Atletico Madrid have had another metamorphosis this season, and it's been a slow start for them. Despite tons of signings, Baena, Hansko, Johnny Cardoso, Raspadori, Almada, and on, they are slowly getting used to life with all of the change. A loss and 2 draws to start out the season, and some early pressure on Simeone, which of course he is very much used to, right? The squad is certainly talented, and if it all comes together, they will be a very strong side. Last season, they lost to Real in a shootout. You'll remember that Alvarez, did he double touch it or not fiasco. getting the magnifying glasses out for that analysis. But Inter and Liverpool were their pot 1 opponents, and they were unlucky in getting Arsenal as one of their pot 2 opponents, as well as Union SG and Galatasaray as their pot 4 opponents. That ain't easy, right? I think Atleti will advance, not as a top 8 team, probably as a knockout playoff side. Marseille are back in, and they qualified for this edition by finishing as runners-up to PSG in Ligue 1. They've made some interesting signings for Roberto De Zerbi, such as Benjamin Pavard, Igor Paixão, the maestro of Feyenoord, and Timothy Weah from Juve, Angel Gomes, Aubameyang. So they have an interesting team for sure. Big question as to how it will all play out, of course. Domestically, they beat newly promoted Paris FC, but when facing tougher opposition in Lyon and Stade Rennais, they've lost. So a mixed, mostly bad start to the season. And what made it worse for them was the difficulty of their draw, as you can see here. There are no easy dunks out there. All of their matches will be very competitive, and I think they will just slip into the top 24. So knockout playoff for them. Bodo Glimt, a Champions League debutant. The team from north of the Arctic Circle will be quite the experience for the teams that drew them. Those making the trip will be Man City, Juventus, Spurs, and AS Monaco. So some big names going to the Asmira Stadium, which has a capacity of 8,000 seated spectators. So that'll be interesting for them, plastic pitch and all. They defeated SK Sturm Graz in the playoffs, one of the teams who were bounced from last season's Champions League during the league phase. They beat Girona and RB Leipzig though, so shout out Sturm Graz. I don't know why I'm talking about Sturm Graz. Let's move on. Back to Bodo. The second Norwegian club to ever play in this competition after Rosenborg, who took part 18 years ago. Bodo will also play Dortmund, Slavia Praha, Atleti, and Galatasaray, so very difficult for them. I don't think they're getting out of the league phase, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to see it. These guys have been one of the best talent identification and acquisition teams out there. I mean, the way that they identify, especially attackers, is just something else. This is their first time in the Champions League since 3 years ago in the 22-23 season under Oliver Glasner, now of Crystal Palace, FA Cup winner. Since then, they've changed coaches. They've had varying success in the Bundesliga, but still managed to finish third last season. Ekitike was sold, of course, but they've brought their next 100 million striker in Jonathan Burkhardt, as well as Ritsu Doan, the Japanese winger. They have one of the more difficult schedules, in my opinion, as you can see here. As hard as it gets from pot 1, really tough from every pot that follows. Hey, even Karabag away, man. That's not nothing. I like their attack with Bahoya and Uzun looking sharp early, Doan getting a goal as well. I think they'll make it through in the top 24 in the playoffs, so they're a playoff team for me. Ajax no longer have Francesco Ferraioli. Things looked good last season until they collapsed toward the end and he resigned, saying there was a difference in vision and time frames for the club's goals. Alrighty, so Johnny Heitinga took over as the head coach of Ajax after he spent a season with Arne Slot at Liverpool as his assistant. So we'll see how he does as the coach of the senior side, as he had experience with the youth teams, of course, but he was also the interim coach following Alfred Schroeder's dismissal in 2023 and actually did pretty well in that stint. Brought them up to third to the cup final, but lost the cup final. Anyway, quite a few players have left. A few have been signed. Oscar Gluck is a good one. He's a talented player. Kasper Dolberg is back. Their squad is very, very young, and while they will be fun to watch, I think they will just fall short of that 11 points to make it into the knockout playoffs. But they're one of those teams that's sort of just on the edge, so we'll see. The champions, PSG, who had a rare slip-up at the Club World Cup final as Chelsea completely dominated them. Great final from Maresca and Chelsea. Now PSG have seen a few changes, Lucas Chevalier and Ilya Zavarny being the most notable additions, with Donnarumma as the most notable departure. With Chevalier, they have a keeper who can play with his feet and contribute to the first phase of building the attack with his great control and distribution, right? They looked rough in the Super Cup, as they only had been training for a few days, I believe, a late return for them, but they have since been gaining momentum. Not sure if you saw that João Neves hat trick. Their 6-3 win over Toulouse, not at their best yet, but will be one of the best in the competition as the PSG players continue to perfect Enrique ball. I expect them to be in the top 8. Real Madrid, and the biggest thing that we have seen under Xabi Alonso is probably how well they are defending at the moment. They have the lowest expected goals against in La Liga. They don't look the finished article yet. I mean, it's so early in Alonso's tenure, but the attack looks good. He seems to be doing the right things to motivate both Rodrigo and Vinicius while getting the best out of Mbappe, ensuring Goulet has the keys to the playmaking in the midfield. Tchouaméni has improved early doors as well. They're looking quite good. Bellingham is yet to return, right? They will have that long trip away to Kairat Almaty. What a run that will be. But anyway, Real Madrid should be top 8. Would be very surprised if they don't win each of their matches from pots 2 and 3. Should be able to beat Juve or Benfica, and that should be enough. Olympiacos will host the previous side, Real Madrid, and they will also go away to Barcelona. These guys have a tough run with the first 2 pots, and then Leverkusen and Arsenal. You know, we don't know what shape Leverkusen will be in under Kasper Hjulmand. They'll be kind of a wild card, right? Hard to predict. You'd expect Olympiacos to be very competitive against the pot 3 and 4 teams, which is why I think they may make it into the top 24 as a playoff team, but I don't think they will quite make it, to be honest with you. I think they will just fall agonizingly short. They do have Mendilibar as their coach, a winner of both the Conference League and the Europa League, goal scorer in Taremi, even though he was crap at Inter, he's still good, amongst others. But those matches against the pot 3 teams will be tough for them. I think they just miss out by a point or 2. Sporting, a difficult team to call this season. Rui Borges proved that he can get this team to win matches after Amorim left, winning a couple of trophies with Sporting last season to close out the season, so very nice from him, despite nearly fumbling it at times. Of course, there's a huge hole in their scoring when it comes to losing Gyökeres, and they also lost Harder, by the way, but they have been decent with signings of late. Maybe things will change with Hugo Viana leaving, but Luis Suarez looks good for them so far. Sporting have lost to both Benfica and Porto already this season, it's very early, right? But we gotta highlight the fact that they are falling to their top competitors domestically. Matches against PSG and Bayern should be losses. That should be the expectation. Brugge and Juve will be competitive. Napoli will be tough but competitive, as with Athletic Club. Not easy for them. I think they get top 24, but it's going to be close. Monaco made it to the playoff round last season, only to lose 4-3 to Benfica in a wild second leg. That second leg ended 3-3, I believe, on the night. So very close call. Very, very close call. This season, while they've lost Singo, Ben Seguir, Magasa, and Briel Mbolo, he's gone, they've made some interesting signings, right? Ansu Fati and Paul Pogba, both of whom are injured. I'm sure you're shocked. Eric Dyer, and in goal, Lucas Radetzky, former Bayer Leverkusen goalkeeper and captain. I do worry about AS Monaco a bit, as I feel like they've regressed in their squad, and their struggles to start the season domestically point to that as well. Just slipping past Le Havre and Strasbourg, but falling to Lille. They do have a great coach in Adi Hutter, but they are one of those teams who are on the bubble between eliminated and into the playoff. If I had to lean toward one, it would be just short by a point or 2 and eliminated. Juve, as mentioned, eliminated by PSV last season, and that was the end, or close to it, for Thiago Motta. Remember him? Then came Igor Tudor, and they've looked better with him. They've also looked better with Jonathan David signed up. He's been scoring. Zegrova is a very good signing. He was actually dangerous at Lille and knows Jonathan David very well from playing together, so that signing makes sense. Los Openda is a good loan as well for some depth should Vlahovic go missing. Also, Gleison Bremer back from injury. Maybe the best news of all for them. If you're a Juve supporter, I think you are generally happy with the draw that you received. Borussia Dortmund is a beatable pot 1 team. Real Madrid away is very tough. Benfica beat you last time at home, but that was a different time, so that one's more of a toss-up now. Shouldn't have issues with Villarreal, and, well, in theory. Always random challenges, of course, and lots can change until then, but I think Juve should be able to make the seeded playoff places. So somewhere between 9th and 16th maybe, but I'll just say playoff team. Speaking of being happy with your draw, Arsenal should be, shouldn't they? Towards the tail end of the previous Champions League season, they were one of the strongest sides, having defeated Real Madrid handily, and honestly should have made it past PSG if not for Gigi Donnarumma playing some of the matches of his life. They've made some big additions in Zubamendi, Gyökeres, Madueke, and Eze, amongst others, so it is yet another window in which Arsenal are one of the biggest spenders, close to 300 million euros this season. They are pushing for silverware with Arteta, as they should, and the Champions League is where I think they will be pretty dangerous. Like I said, happy with their draw, I'm sure, and they should absolutely be one of the top 8 teams. Anything less would be a surprise to me. FC Copenhagen, the new home of Youssoufa Moukoko. Remember him and all of the attention he got in the Dortmund youth ranks? Never really worked out for him at Dortmund, or at Nice, really. They also lost one of their top talents in Victor Froholt, who moved to FC Porto, so that Porto could get in on the Scandinavian fun as both Sporting and Benfica had prior. Now, Copenhagen qualified by going through every round of qualification. Drita, Malmö, and FC Basel all fell to Copenhagen, and who were they given in their draw for all of their efforts? You know, as you can see, there is a chance they will make the playoff, but getting two of the most difficult Pot 3 teams, I feel for them. I don't think Copenhagen will advance. One of those Pot 3 teams was Tottenham Hotspur, who are returning to the competition for the first time since the 22-23 season, thanks in no part to their Premier League performance, of course, but down to their Europa League final win over Manchester United. In Thomas Frank, they certainly have a good tactician, a guy who is more flexible in his playing style and tactics than Postecoglou was, and despite a loss already, they have otherwise looked dangerous. Now, with the additions of Kolumwani and Xavi Simons to go along with Mohamed Kudus and more, they will be dangerous in the attack. That's for sure. They're rebuilding that. They were a little bit blunt. And honestly, you can see them being able to get a victory over each of the sides on the bottom row. They beat Bodo Glimt on the way to the Europa League final not long ago, last season, and maybe a few points from the top row as well. I see Spurs in the knockout playoff places, maybe making it as high as 9th through 16th. All right, my side, Benfica, who at this time last year was not in a good place under Roger Schmidt. He would be sacked and Bruno Lage would come in and set Benfica on a better path. I like his passion for Benfica, Lage's that is. I find he's a bit petulant with the supporters at times and makes choices that I don't agree with personnel-wise, you know? But I do like Benfica's window. Richard Rios, Ivanovic, Luka Bacchio, Baron Nashea, Dedic, exciting. Not to mention Sudakov from Shakhtar. That's a killer window. So we'll see. Certainly all of the tools have been afforded to Bruno Lage. Let's see what he can do with those tools. Sorry for calling them tools. All draws are difficult, of course, but you can picture Benfica getting enough points to make it into the playoff. I don't think that's unreasonable. I have them just missing out on the seeded places, I guess. So 17th through 24th is probably the expectation, but just in general, playoff team. Inter, the finalists who were embarrassed by getting smashed 5-0 by PSG and who have lost their great coach in Simone Inzaghi and replaced him with a guy who we have no idea how he will do. Inter looked splendid in their first match against Torino, but looked like, you know, Club World Cup Inter against Udinese, losing 1-0 at home. So we don't know how they'll look under Christian Kibu. Could be a worry, or maybe that higher press will cause them to smash teams. But one thing is for sure, I'm looking forward to watching Sucic in the midfield. He's looking good. I think they will beat the pot 3 and 4 teams and one of either Atleti or Borussia Dortmund, which will get them on the precipice of the top 8. And I'm leaning toward just outside the top 8. Karabag are back, man. The last time we saw them was in the 17-18 season, where they didn't manage to get a win, but drew twice with Atletico Madrid, so there's that. The Azerbaijani side made it into this year's competition through victories in qualifiers against Shelbourne of Ireland, Shkendia of North Macedonia, to which I apologize for that pronunciation, and finally beating Ferencváros 5-4 on aggregate. Close one. They got a pretty tough draw, as you can see, and I don't think they will make it past the league phase, unfortunately. Maybe 4 or 5 points, something like that. This is a club that you can never count out, can you? Consistently playing in European football due to consistently finishing in the upper echelons of La Liga, where they have never been relegated, by the way. Winning the Copa del Rey in 2024, keeping Nico Williams. That's big, right? It seemed like he was going to Barcelona, then boom, he stays. So they have a solid spine in Unai Simon, with Vivian ahead of him, Sanset, Mikel, the Williams boys in the attack. Really good stuff from Athletic Club and Ernesto Valverde to tie it all together, so you can never really sleep on these guys. Looking at their fixtures, I think they win 3 of their matches from the bottom row, and one of the matches against Atalanta or Borussia Dortmund to get them into the 17th through 24th realm, the knockout playoffs for them. What do we say about Bayer Leverkusen, eh? I did a video on Ten Hag's dismissal from Leverkusen, which was pretty fascinating stuff to get through, honestly. Quite the mess there, both on Ten Hag's side and the club side. Now, they sold their entire squad. I mean, the guys who are missing are just ridiculous. Just look at this. They're all gone. Now they are under Hjulmand, who we'll see how that goes. I liked what I saw from Hjulmand as the Denmark national team coach, but his last time in the Bundesliga wasn't anything to write home about. Granted, This is a more talented squad. Maybe they can understand his ideas better. And given they have a talented squad, with this draw, I think they will be a team that has a mixed bag, will be touch and go, but will just make it into the playoffs. Just. So last season, Club Brugge went on quite the run, didn't they? Of course, that came to an end against Aston Villa, but prior to that, they smoked Atalanta and looked pretty great. So Club Brugge is a team that you can take seriously when you play them, as they have guys who can hurt you. The attack with guys like Solis, Jutkla went back to Spain, but they had a very fast counter previously, and they've added some names such as Forbes from Ajax, Diakon from Stade Reims, so we'll see. Player to watch, my eye will be on Rafael Onyedika in the midfield whenever I'm watching Club Brugge. He's been a sought-after midfielder that was linked to quite a few teams this summer. West Ham, AS Monaco, Eintracht Frankfurt was in the mix, Galatasaray. No move made, but a good player. And they have a good group of clubs to play, or a bad group, depending how you want to look at it. Very, very difficult for them. Can they get a similar points haul to last season where they had 11 and made the playoffs? I think they can beat Kairat, Marseille, Monaco. Atalanta and Sporting away are difficult ones, though. They're on the edge also, between eliminated and making the knockout playoffs. So in this moment, I'm actually leaning towards eliminated. And here we have a team that perhaps could have won the Champions League last season, if not for being their own worst enemies at the end of that Inter Milan second leg. Match in your hands, and then you have too many men forward, and a 37-year-old center back finishes your campaign for you. Nuts. Really, really crazy. But Barcelona need to be taken seriously once again, as they are still extremely strong and have Lamine Yamal, a kid who can win matches on his own, really. Drive them forward. The kind of player that you have to account for as just a wild card that kind of goes beyond tactics, right? The one area I do worry for Barcelona is that back line. Now that they don't have Inigo Martinez leading the back line because he was instrumental, but they'll be fine in the league phase for sure. Barcelona will probably be a top 3 team, just looking at their fixtures here. That PSG match will be fun, and it's not far off. October 1st, guys. Watch out. Villarreal, back in the Champions League for the first time since the 21-22 season when Unai Emery took them all the way to the semifinals. Remember that? Eliminating Juve and Bayern Munich prior to losing 5-2 on aggregate to Liverpool. Emery's time with Villarreal was special, winning the Europa League, that semifinal run. What a guy. Now, they have been with Marcelino for almost 2 years at this point, will be 2 years this November, and there have been gradual improvements, right? From 8th to 5th last season, but there have been a lot of changes as well. Alex Baena, Jeremy Pino, Barry, and others have left the club, but plenty have arrived, such as Georgian striker George Mikotadze, Renato Vega, Tijan Buchanan, who started well, and more. Villarreal will be a decent side, I reckon, and with the matches they have, even with their pot 1 and 2 teams, they will be competitive. We'll see against City, but this ain't the City of old, right? Defensive issues. We'll get to that. Newcastle United have lost Oscar Isaac, a guy who was an absolute difference maker for them on so many occasions. But honestly, when you look at their departures, he's basically the only big loss for them. And they acted in kind in the transfer market, spending close to 300 million euros on guys like Nick Woltemade, said that wrong, who will be an exciting player to watch though. Anthony Elanga, Yohan Wissa. I mean, there's your new attack right there. Jacob Ramsey, Malik Chow, Ramsdale coming in on loan as well, I think. It went from things looking a bit spooky for Newcastle United in their transfer window to things looking a lot better now in the attack, especially backing up Gordon. They already have a strong midfield with guys like Tonali, Joelinton, and Bruno Guimaraes, so Ramsey adds further depth, and they are sorted in defense now. Should they avoid another injury plague, I think Newcastle United will make it through to the playoffs. With the teams they've drawn, I'd say they're good for 11 or 12 points, something around there. Here we go, another debutant. Debutant 2 of 3 now is the mighty Paphos from Cyprus. They had to go through Maccabi Tel Aviv, Dinamo Kiev, and Crvena Zvezda to qualify for this competition, and they did so pretty convincingly, not losing a single match in that 6-game run, right? They're just the second Cypriot side to play in this competition since it became the Champions League in the early 90s, and they're of course hoping to follow in the footsteps of Apoel Nicosia, who you'll remember made it all the way to the quarterfinals in 2012. Iconic run from them. Funnily enough, we're getting a Cyprus versus Greece matchup right off the bat, with Paphos taking on Olympiakos in their first match, and from there it becomes difficult to see where they will pick up points. Against Kairat, they of course have a great chance, but That one's away. Against Slavia, you could see it. Will be tough for them. Cool experience, but I think destined to be eliminated. But up the Paphos. Let's go. Ivan Juric, the man who succeeds Gianpiero Gasperini after the latter was in charge for 9 years at Atalanta. That's a long time. He really helped build Atalanta into the Champions League regulars that they are. Got them winning, the Europa League also, didn't he? Now, their top scorer from last season, Matteo Retegui, was sold off to Al Qadsiya, and in general, there have been a lot of moves made, both in and out at Atalanta. But one awkward aspect is the Lookman situation. Guy thought he would leave for sure. He made statements about it, etc. Still there. So we'll see how that goes and if he will get up and running under Juric. As of now, goals could be an issue for them. We'll see how their attack develops and if Lookman will be playing regularly, but that's been a big issue with Juric's teams. They don't seem to thrive in the attack. Difficult matches for them, and with the new coaching situation, I think Ledea will struggle. There'll be another team scrapping to make it into the knockout playoffs, but I think it will be a tough season post-Gasperini. Bit of a hangover perhaps, and they may just slip out and get eliminated, though I hate to say it about Atalanta. Our final debutant, the team from Kazakhstan, the team from Almaty, it's Kairat Almaty, and their qualification ensures that teams will be racking up the air miles to visit them, right? Almaty is the easternmost team in the competition, maybe ever, I'm not sure, unless there is a Russian team that I'm missing, but these guys are close to the Chinese border, tucked way east in Kazakhstan. Just to put things into perspective, you're almost going to China when you visit them. They are not the first Kazakh side to qualify, as that honor goes to Astana, who qualified back in 2015, but they went through the ringer to get here. They won qualifying rounds against Olimpia from Slovenia, KUPS from Finland, where they turned around a 2-0 aggregate deficit to win 3-2, Slovan Bratislava from Slovakia, who they beat on penalties, and then Celtic on penalties with their second choice goalkeeper. Unbelievable stuff. You had weddings being stopped to view the shootout. You love to see it, right? Now, are they expected to make the playoff round to advance? Not really. They aren't expected to do much, honestly. Anything can happen in this sport, right? That's what makes it fun. But their fans will mostly just be excited about their draw. Just look at those clubs, right? They get to welcome Real Madrid to Almaty. They're going to London, Milan, Lisbon, Copenhagen will be great fun. I mean, I hope they give us something. Okay, I made mention of City prior, and I don't know what to think of them this season. The issues we saw last season when it came to their midfield and back line seem to still be there, but the difference is they now have a fantastic shot stopper in Gigio Donnarumma who can make up for some of those deficiencies, right? Will it be enough? Maybe. Will it change how City play a little bit as they won't have a distribution master like Ederson? For sure, but we don't know yet if that will be an overall net negative or positive with this big change. The attack will be tasty, that's for sure, as Erling Haaland always pops off in this competition. He has a ridiculous goal-scoring record of 49 goals and 5 assists in 48 appearances in the Champions League, so unbelievable stuff from him. Also has more goals than he has games for Norway as well, as I'm sure you saw during this international break. City have a draw that they will be happy with, as well as an instant return for Kevin De Bruyne to Manchester via Napoli. That should be a fun match in general. They also got Real Madrid because of course they did. They always do. Haaland playing in Norway against Bodo Glimt. They should be able to get top 8, but I think they will just fall short in the 9th through 16th places. Speaking of De Bruyne, he was one of the many arrivals at Napoli this summer, along with the return of Elmas, Højlund signing, Milinkovic-Savic, the keeper, that is. Very good keeper, by the way. Noah Lang, Sam Bukema. Plenty of rivals to help out Mr. McTominay, the Serie A MVP of last season. As the champions of Italy and the fact that they are a Conte team, they are always going to be difficult in theory, at least until you look at Conte's European record. Perhaps the fact that he doesn't have a group stage and instead will play a league phase will help them out there. 8 matches instead of 6. They'll be able to find their way. So strong side, good coach, very winnable fixtures. Conte welcoming his old side Chelsea to Napoli. That's fun to see as well. I think they just miss out on top 8 as well in a seeded playoff spot. And finally, we have the black and yellow Borussia Dortmund, and I never really know how to feel about them, as they certainly improved under Niko Kovac. Like I said, happy to admit I was wrong about that, but clearly still have a Dortmund stinker in them from time to time, as they showed against St. Pauli to kick off the season. Joe Bellingham looks like he'll be a good signing. Fabio Silva, We'll see. He did well in La Liga, so maybe he has finally found himself. And Selmino looked good against Union Berlin, so Dortmund will be a very competitive squad. Once again, you'd imagine, and perhaps Kovac's tactics are suited to this competition, so we'll see. I expect them to play in the playoffs, probably in the 17th through 24th section of the table is where they will land, but I think they're a playoff team. Okay, there's no shot you're still watching. This is an echo chamber, I am sure, but I want to thank anyone who happens to still be here. You are the real ones. Thank you. I gotta go. This was a lot of talking. I'll see you next week for some UCL this week. That sounds confusing, but you know what I mean. All right, guys, take care.